We just got finished with an incredible Monday Night Football game in Philadelphia, where with about a minute left, Kirk Cousins and the Falcons drive it, win the game, and completely shock Philadelphia on their home field. And week 2 is officially in the books. I got it right this week. But we're looking ahead towards week 3, and where does every team rank as things stand today? It's a loaded NFL right now. I'm really not sure who's good. There's just a lot of mid teams right now. You saw teams that performed incredible in week 1 really embarrassed themselves this week. You look at teams like the Saints, who a lot of teams had really low expectations for. We'll get into all these teams, talk about what makes each team so interesting, and kind of go over my rankings. But if you guys are new to the channel, I update these power rankings every single Monday night after the game. So if you guys do enjoy, consider hitting that like and subscribe button. Also, be sure to check out my Patreon, which will be linked down in the description below. Stay tuned for my weekly mock draft and NFL draft content throughout the NFL season as well. Let's go ahead and get into it with what should be no surprise, the number 32 team. And that is the Carolina Panthers. And Carolina is just an absolute embarrassment right now. Now, if you guys have followed the channel, I'm putting highlights in here. The Panthers are the only team that don't get any highlights because I genuinely don't have a single player on this team that I think is worth highlighting. I came out this offseason and I said, look, I think Bryce Young is going to surprise a lot of people. I think he's going to have a good season. I liked the moves they made on the offensive line. I liked trading for Deontay Johnson. Every single move they made has looked absolutely horrible, and Bryce Young got benched today. Andy Dalton will be starting next week against the Vegas Raiders, which is shocking that this Raiders team that is now very good has a very realistic shot of starting 2-1. Carolina just has absolutely nothing going for them. The offensive line can't protect Bryce Young. Bryce Young rolls out of clean pockets, keeps his eyes downfield, doesn't see the free blitzer coming, gets hit. He can't read the defense. He's throwing completely inaccurate throws. And on top of that, the defense is an embarrassment as well. I mean, Derek Brown goes out last week. He's out for the season. J.C. Horn is getting mossed by Quentin Johnston, who really has struggled with his hands. We'll get to him in a little bit, but just everything that could go wrong for this Panthers team has gone wrong. And when you look at the details of that Bryce Young trade, where they trade up to get the number 1 pick, they got rid of DJ Moore. They got rid of the pick that ended up being Caleb Williams. They got rid of the pick that was Tyreek Stevenson and Darnell Wright. And their second-round pick is going to Chicago this year in the 2025 draft. And when you factor in all of the misses they've had, the McCaffrey trade has backfired miserably. You trade Brian Burns. Who is the standout player on this roster? This is the most dysfunctional franchise, maybe in all of sports right now. An absolute embarrassment going on in Carolina right now. I have nothing positive to say about this team because nobody has showed up for them through the first 2 weeks. They are already minus 60 on the season in terms of point differential. How do you let that happen in 2 weeks? Horrible stuff from Carolina. I could do a full video on just the dysfunction of Carolina, and maybe we do it later this week if you guys do want to see it. But just horrible stuff from the Panthers, and they are by far the worst team in football right now. Number 31, another one that shouldn't really come as a surprise. It's the New York Giants. This was an interesting one against Washington because I don't think they played a very good game when you really look at it. I thought Daniel Jones was very inconsistent, what you expect. I thought the defense, they were okay. Everything was just okay for the Giants, but it kind of comes down to management. I kind of blame this loss on Joe Shane because how do you not have a backup kicker? Graham Gano's banged up all week long, and they don't really do anything about it. On the opening kickoff, Graham Gano gets hurt, and what do you know? They have no kicker for the rest of the game. They're forced to go for 2-point conversions the entire game, and they end up losing as a result of that. It was just an ugly game, really on both sides of the ball for the Giants, but unlike the Panthers, I actually do have some positives to talk about with the Giants, and it's Malik Neighbors. Malik Neighbors has been really, really good for the Giants through 2 weeks. He has been that weapon that this team has so desperately been looking for the last decade, it seems like. Just throwing a dart ever since Odell left, and they haven't been able to hit with any of these receivers. And it looks like Malik Neighbors is going to be a hit. He's just getting open, making plays happen in the short to intermediate parts of the field, catching touchdowns for this team. And he's making Daniel Jones look serviceable, which is a miracle because Daniel Jones has been an absolute disaster. Now, what I will say, back to the negativity with the Giants, I don't think Dable is going to last through this year. He just doesn't seem to have any control over the locker room, doesn't seem to be very coordinated. I don't think he makes it through this year. The other negative thing I want to say about this team, I just don't trust the run game. They haven't been able to get anything going with Devin Singletary or anything like that. And the secondary didn't do good. They lost to a not a very good Commanders team, even though we'll get to the Commanders in a little bit. Commanders aren't a very good football team. This team's 0-2, and they might not be in any games for quite a while. This Giants team is a rough watch, and I think they've got a lot of work to do. But Malik Neighbors has been good. Dexter Lawrence continues to play like an all-pro level defensive tackle, and those are some promising points for them, but pretty disappointing start to the year for the Giants. I got them at 31. At number 30, down 4 spots is going to be a bit of a surprise to some people. I do have the Denver Broncos here. Now, I know a lot of people are going to say I'm too low on Denver. I get it. I saw this team up close. I got Pat Surtain right here. I got Bo Nix right here. I believed in this team. I picked this team to win 8 games, and this is like the weirdest part about this Broncos team to me. I don't feel like I'm watching Bo Nix play quarterback for this team. This does not look like the Bo Nix that we saw at Oregon, the calm quarterback that was really good in the pocket, that got the ball out of his hands quickly, threw with great touch on the run. That Bo Nix is nowhere to be found right now. He's just throwing the ball into double coverage. He's running for his life back there. The offensive line's a disaster, and they lose Mike McGlinchey for a little bit. And Bo Nix is like taking these deep shots that he never took at Oregon, which is very, very strange to see. Not really sure what to make of it. I know he's a rookie quarterback, and there's some inconsistencies there, but really underwhelming stuff from him in that regard. And on top of that, I don't think his weapons are doing him any favors. I couldn't name you any positives on this Broncos team. I drafted Cortland Sutton in fantasy. I was like, yeah, he's going to have a good year. He's put up 2 duds pretty much in back-to-back weeks. Marvin Mims had a big play in this game that put Denver in the red zone. You're not going to win if you got one guy making one play in this game. On top of that, the run game is non-existent. Who is running the football for this team? Estime went down. Javonte Williams has been a complete, utter disaster for this team. And the defense, they're doing their part. I think the defense is playing well. And in the second half of this game, kind of stopped anything Pittsburgh was doing offensively. And they still lost this game, and it never felt particularly close. This offense has a lot of work to do. I still trust Sean Payton. I still think he's a good head coach. But you got to get back to the basics with this team because Bo Nix isn't Russell Wilson. The type of stuff Bo Nix is doing looked like what Russell Wilson wanted to do. He needs to be a little bit more laid back, play to his strengths, get these slants going across the middle, get Cortland Sutton the ball, get Greg Dulcich off the field. You got to make some of this stuff happen. Denver has been pretty rough to watch offensively through the first 2 weeks, and they look pretty rough right now. The defense is playing well, but I got them at number 30. At number 29, staying in the same spot that they were last week, we got the Tennessee Titans. Tennessee is one of the more weird teams in the league because they've allowed less than 500 yards total through the first 2 weeks of this season, and they're 0-2. Very strange. What I will say might come off as a hot take to some people. I think Will Levis is the worst starting quarterback in the NFL, not named Daniel Jones right now. I think those two, it's 1A, 1B, pick your poison. Every single week now, it seems like Will Levis is doing an, oh my gosh, what are you doing? We saw the Brian Callahan clip. We see that. Seems like the coaching has kind of lost a little bit of trust in what Will Levis is going to be able to do. And I mean, he's got some of these plays where you're like, holy cow, like he's got a cannon attached to his right arm. He makes some really good plays happen with his legs, but the processing and decision making is brutal. It's just brutal. And it hasn't come along for him at all since he was in Kentucky. And it looks pretty bad. This is a game where the defense played pretty well. I thought they did a good job at kind of containing the weapons there for the Jets. And the offense, I don't think it was a bad week from them either. Will Levis obviously had his disaster, but like J.C. Latham had an improved week. The run game wasn't particularly amazing this week, but we saw Tony Pollard go off. Calvin Ridley had a couple of really good plays in this game, which was a bit of a surprise to me. But this Titans team feels very unorganized. I don't really know what they're building. I think this is one of the worst teams in football, and you're not going to get anywhere when you have a quarterback that is throwing it behind him on a third down in the red zone in back-to-back weeks, throwing into double coverage. And, I mean, we're going to get more of these every single week. I think Will Levis has been a disaster for Tennessee, and I've got them at the number 29 spot entering next week. At number 28, it's the New England Patriots, who have to be one of the weirdest 1-1 teams because they very easily could be 0-2, and they very easily could be 2-0. They had some weird decision-making stuff down the stretch. Maybe you go for it on the 4th and 1 and try and get this crowd pumped up, but they're really interesting. Keon White is that dude, and I talked about him being my breakout player for the Patriots this year, and I had some idiot in my comment section telling me it was going to be Drake May. I specifically said there were no rookies involved, and he didn't even know who Keon White was, so moving on past that, though, Keon White has 4 sacks. I believe he's second in the NFL in sacks through the first 2 weeks. Granted, they have played the Bengals offensive line, and they've played the Seahawks offensive line, which are 2 of the probably bottom half of the league units. I think that the Bengals O-line is a little bit better than that, but Seattle especially, the defense has done a really good job. I think Christian Gonzalez has been incredible, despite the miss assignment there on the DK Metcalf touchdown. I thought the defense has been good. And Jacoby Brissett has been serviceable. They're able to run the ball. I like the way they're using Jalen Polk in this offense. That being said, they're just not a very talented roster. I think your ceiling is very limited, and you still got a rookie head coach. You still have a lot of questions around the skill positions and the offensive line who's exceeding expectations right now. I hadn't seen enough to move them down. I also didn't see enough to move them up. It's kind of where I thought they would be after what we saw last week. I got them at the 28th spot. I don't think they're a bad football team. I don't think they're a great football team either. At number 27, we got the Washington Commanders, and one of the more interesting teams to watch on any given week because Jaden Daniels is electric. I mean, he's doing some really, really impressive stuff at the quarterback position, particularly with his legs. I mean, he's making these incredible plays. Brian Robinson had a heck of a game yesterday against the Giants. A lot of really positive things to take away in the run game. The passing game, though, it's so strange because Terry McLaurin, everyone has been adamant that he's a top 10 receiver that's a Washington fan. Where has he been? Another guy that I drafted in fantasy that just seems to go missing for long stretches of these games. Jaden Daniels, I get the pocket breaks down. He's not able to get the ball out. But just I don't really like the way they're utilizing Terry McLaurin in this new Kingsbury offense. On top of that, I don't think the defense has been incredible. I thought Benjamin St. Juste had a heck of a game, one of my guys from a few years back. You're not really getting anything great, but what you are getting is exceptional play on the ground from Brian Robinson and from Jaden Daniels. Daniels has looked incredible. I am worried about Jaden Daniels, though. If you look at some of these hits he's taking with his frame, I had Commanders fans try and tell me he's 200 pounds. You can't watch him on any given week and tell me that guy's playing at 205. He is playing at like 185 or very smaller than what he's listed because he looks like he's one hit away from getting snapped in half. He's so frail. And I mean, he took a few hits yesterday. They looked like he was going to be out for an extended period of time. I am a little bit worried about that, but I do think they played pretty good. I like the way the ground game's working. I think the defense, they've got pieces. They just need to continue to build on it. And I was impressed with what I saw from them. Granted, you beat the Giants. I couldn't move them any higher than this. I thought about moving them a little bit lower, but I got them at number 27. Oh boy, I'm going to make some people mad with this one. I got the Jacksonville Jaguars at number 26. I don't see how they could be any higher than this. Jacksonville has been one of the worst and most embarrassing watches through the first 2 weeks. Let's just retrace our steps back to the end of last season, where this team really needed to win like 1 or 2 games and they would have won the AFC South. End up going, I want to say like 1-6 in their final 7 games. Don't quote me on that. I think I'm wrong on the numbers. But they were absolutely horrible. Pretty much just have to win the last game of the season and they could make a wild card spot. They blow that to a tanking Tennessee team. So they don't make the playoffs. They come into this year with a new defensive coordinator, Doug Peterson, still the main head coach of this team. Trevor Lawrence is healthy. You feel pretty good about that. Week 1, you go up 14-0 to the Dolphins, and things are looking great. You blow it. You do exactly what you did in the second half of last season. You blow the lead. And what do you do in week 2? You just absolutely embarrass yourselves against a Browns team that lost by 28 points last week. So there's a lot of things that I could talk about with this Jacksonville team, but we got to start with the offensive line. I know Jags fans are going to be like, oh, we need a corner. We need a corner. I get you need a corner. This offensive line is horrible. Cam Robinson should get benched. He's been absolutely atrocious for this team. Trevor Lawrence has no protection whatsoever. Anton Harrison has been one of the few bright spots of this team, but even then, not all that moved by it. Brian Thomas Jr. isn't getting the touches he should be getting because when he's on the field, he is dynamite. He is electric for this team. They're not getting him the ball. You were missing Evan Ingram yesterday. They can't run the ball with Travis Etienne. Trevor Lawrence's decision-making just looks like it's fallen off a cliff. I was talking to my dad. I'm like, this is not the player that we saw at Clemson. I'm not blaming this on Trevor Lawrence because I don't think he's got the time to throw, but some of these decisions are puzzling to say the least. Christian Kirk has been practically a no-show for 2 straight weeks now. Trayvon Walker, who knows what he's doing on 90% of the snaps. He might make one splash play in the run game. Jags fans will try and justify that first overall pick. He's been a disaster for them. I guarantee you they wish they had Aiden Hutchinson right now. The secondary is getting beat left and right. And the only reason they were in this game is because of bad management by Kevin Stefanski. What's new? I think Doug Peterson should have been fired today because he has lost this locker room all the way. He's lost the fan base. And you look at their next few games, they're not beating Buffalo on Monday night, I'll tell you that much. So this team could start 0-3, and if you start 0-3, I pretty much think you're out of the playoff race, even though the AFC is weird right now. This is an absolute disaster in Jacksonville. I don't think we're realizing how bad this is for them because Trevor Lawrence they just paid him. The contract is already looking pretty miserable. He's got nothing on this team around him. Hines Allen's been fine. The defensive line's been okay, but like this offense is brutal to watch week in and week out. And I thought Doug Peterson was a quarterback guru. They dropped from number 20 to number 26 this week. That's my little rant on how bad Jacksonville has been, but it's been really bad. And I talked to a lot of Jags fans on Twitter. It's rough in Jacksonville. They're number 26 for me right now. At number 25, I got the Vegas Raiders, and it's strictly because I still don't know if this team is good. They have a historically bad running game right now. Like, historically bad. They can't run the football. They average 4 yards per play, and they somehow won this game. Gardner Minshew feels like he's got a horseshoe up his butt, and he pulls it out every time he plays the Ravens. I don't know how he does it. I will say this. The skill positions are playing just as we thought they would. Devontae Adams had an incredible game, but man, Brock freaking Bowers has been a difference maker for this Raiders team. He's that weapon across the middle that this team has been looking for. And you've now got a reliable big body tight end who can catch passes but make plays happen after the catch. He's elusive in the open field. That's exciting if you're a Raiders fan. On top of that, you got a pretty good defense right now. Max Crosby had a really good game against Baltimore. The defense made some stops in the run game. And I still don't know if this team is good. I really don't. I don't know what to make of this. The Ravens didn't look like the Ravens. The offense was bad for 3.5 quarters, and the Ravens just find a way to lose these games late. I have them where they're at because I still want to see a little bit more. I know Raiders fans are going to be like, oh, we won. We should be higher than the Bears and the Colts and whatever. I'm like, okay, I get it. I need to see a little bit more. It was a great win against the Ravens on the road, but I want to see another game like that from them. And until then, I got them at number 25. Speaking of the Bears, they dropped 8 spots and a bit of a 3 teams just dropping significantly this week. The Bears were one of them. I know they're 1-1. This team feels like an 0-2 team right now. We'll start with Caleb Williams. I think he's been fine. I know a lot of people aren't going to like it. He's looked solid at times for this team. He's made good decisions with the ball, gotten the ball out of his hands quickly. I like some of the reads he's making. I don't put this on him. I think the defense has been pretty good too. Jalen Johnson's been playing like an all-pro. Darrell Taylor had a really good week 1. The linebackers are doing their job. We'll start with DeAndre Swift on the offensive side of the ball. I told you so. DeAndre Swift has no vision. He's horrible for this Bears team. They paid him like a 3-year, $33 million contract. I was like, okay. Never understood that. Roschon Johnson is the clear best running back on this team. Get him touches. Let him go to work for you. The weapons have been okay. I would like to see DJ Moore get the ball, but this is going to lead perfectly into my next point. How is Caleb supposed to make anything happen right now? I know we can't blame the offensive line for everything. He's made some bad decisions, throwing across his body. I get it, but this offensive line has been like really, really awful, and he's got no time to find these shots down the field. He's running for his life, and he's making plays happen when he can, but there's only so much he can do. They got bailed out by Will Levis and his poor decision-making in week 1, and their defense kind of kept them in it in week 2. Houston didn't win the way you would have thought they would have because their offense was so bad. Shane Waldron just looks terrible for this team as an offensive coordinator. Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what to say right now. They're one of my big disappointments through 2 weeks. I get they're 1-1, but this was advertised as this explosive new offense that we just haven't seen yet. So I got the Bears at number 24, hoping we can see a little bit more from them moving forward. You guys thought my Jaguars rant was bad. Well, we'll probably go for like 2 to 5 minutes on just how bad this Colts team has been. They're 0-2. If you guys don't know, I'm a Colts fan. They're 0-2 right now. I don't even know where to begin with this because that game against Green Bay was one of the most embarrassing performances I have ever seen in my life as a Colts fan. You're playing Malik Willis. Malik Willis, who couldn't even be the backup quarterback for Will Levis, who we already talked about being terrible. So you're already kind of that should never happen. That should never happen that a backup quarterback, let alone Malik Willis, outplays you. All right. You come into this game knowing that Malik Willis can't throw the ball. He's never been able to throw the ball, even really dating back to Liberty. Mechanics are so inconsistent with him. What is Green Bay going to do this entire game? What did they spend a 3rd-round pick and a free agency pickup on? What did they do? They went out and got running backs. What did the Packers do? They ran it down the throats of the Colts from the very beginning of this game. This is not a fake stat. Green Bay had 237 rushing yards in the first half. The first half of this game. That is the most in a game since 2000. The defense has been unbelievably bad for the Colts through 2 weeks. The linebackers can't tackle. Zaire Franklin is my guy. He has been an absolute disaster for the Colts over the first 2 weeks. Same thing with EJ Speed. Both linebackers have been terrible. Nick Cross, the safety, he's been like the only bright spot on this defense. Grover Stewart has made some splash plays. Buckner's made some splash plays. Horrible from the front 7. Just everyone on the front 7 has been up and down. Latu, I don't know why he's like rotating in and out. Hey, he got hurt in the game. Your secondary's banged up. They can't guard anybody. And when it's a gotta-have-it situation for Green Bay on like a 3rd and 7, Green Bay is just going to run the ball and they're going to get it. I had zero confidence in this run defense. Now, if we shift over to the offense, I actually don't. I think people are going to overrate some of the things Richardson did in this game. I get it. Richardson had probably his worst game as a pro. I will come out and say that right now. So don't call me a homer for this. But I think the receivers let him down today. I can name at least 3 drops off the top of my head where he had perfectly thrown footballs. Jonathan Taylor dropped it. Pittman had a drop in this game. A.D. Mitchell had a drop in this game. Just where he's putting the ball exactly where it needs to be. And the receivers just aren't making plays on the football. That's a concern. On top of that, I really didn't understand the play calling down the stretch. Why is Jonathan Taylor not playing a single snap on that final drive? That doesn't make any sense to me. Anthony Richardson, the accuracy's got to improve. It has to. Made some really bad throws in this game. But I also think he was kind of the only reason they had a chance to win it down late. And then my final talking point, A.D. Mitchell was horrible. He's been absolutely atrocious. Alec Pierce has been by far their best weapon. And I still have them at 23. And the reason I do, this offense has shown flashes. I thought Jonathan Taylor on the touches yesterday looked like Jonathan Taylor again. That was his best game I think he's played in quite a while. He looked explosive. He looked dynamic. I thought that the play calling could have been better, sure. But the defense has to make some stuff happen. They got to make adjustments. You play the Bears next week. That should be a winnable game, but they have to make some moves fast because if they start 0-3, this season kind of feels like a wash for a season that you felt like you had expectations to make the playoffs after being a game away last year. I had them starting 0-2. Now, this is my saving grace here. I picked them to start 0-2. I still think there's 10, 11 wins on this schedule. They've got 2 of the tougher matchups out of their way. I think they can win. They got some winnable games coming up. So we'll see what happens, but a horrible game from the Colts, and I got them at number 23. At number 22, I don't think it's really a surprise. It's the Rams, and I think the Rams, this is the season from hell for the Rams. It's 2022 all over again. They're decimated right now on the offensive side of the football. I want to say 3 starters on the offensive line are out. You've got 3 starters on the O-line. Puka Nakua's hurt. Cooper Kupp is now hurt. You got pieces on the defense that are hurt. I don't even want to spend too much time on this. They got embarrassed by Arizona. I get it. Arizona, we'll get to Arizona in a little bit. I got some hot takes about the Cardinals. The Rams just I don't really know what to make of them. I think Jared Verse has been good. I think the defense has done the best they could. I thought they were horrible against Arizona. Matthew Stafford has no weapons right now. I don't want to spend too much more time on this team. They're 0-2. I really factor a lot of that to injuries. They don't have a lot of depth on this team. They never did defensively. And I got them at number 22. At number 21, we got another NFC South team, or NFC West team, in the Seattle Seahawks. Seattle's had a pretty good first 2 weeks, and I'm still not really sure what to make of them. They were in a close one with a Broncos team that I didn't really think we talked about them. They shouldn't have been in there if the offensive line was brutal in that game. And then they were in a close one and an overtime victory against the Patriots team. Both those teams, I think they are better than, but not significantly. Geno Smith has been really good. I think he's made some incredible plays happen. He's one of the more underrated quarterbacks in the league. We talked about that coming into the year. I think he's been fantastic. I think the weapons have been really, really impressive for this team. Jackson Smith and Jigba is like putting up incredible numbers for this team. No touchdowns yet on the season, I don't believe, but I want to say he had like 12 catches in the game yesterday. DK Metcalf playing some of the best ball of his career right now. Zach Charbonnet, he's looked good. But there's just something missing from this Seattle team. The defense is playing okay, I guess. Byron Murphy has been incredible for this team. He's been wreaking havoc as a rookie. We talked about Boye Mafe, who's like up at the top of the league right now on pressures. Those are all things that are positives about this team. And yet neither of the games they've been in, they really felt like they had complete control over. So I got them at 21. I want to see them beat a good team right now because I don't think either of those teams are very good. And I got some questions right now around Seattle. Good team. I don't think I'd put them in the up above number 20 just yet, but I do think this is a solid team as they stand. The Arizona Cardinals sitting here at number 20. I said I had some takes about the Cardinals. I don't think it's out of the realm of the possibility that they win this division. And I know that sounds crazy to say. This team is good, like really freaking good. And I have them at 20 because, one, you beat a decimated Rams team. I want to see a little bit more consistency. They are the Cardinals after all. But there is some really fun stuff to talk about with this team. Offensively, I don't think there is a more fun and more versatile, dynamic offense in the league than what Arizona is doing right now. Drew Petzing's got to be at the top of every single head coaching hire right now because he's doing an absolutely phenomenal job coaching this Cardinals team. I mean, I don't have enough good things to say about him right now. He's doing an incredible job. The mixing of the run and the pass, James Conner, we talked about being the most underrated back in football. He is playing like that. And then the play action stuff right now. Michael Wilson, one of my guys. Trey McBride has been really good. And then Maserati Marv. What a freaking game. I know he only had 4 catches in this game. All of them were in like the first 20 minutes of this game. But 4 catches, 130 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Yeah, I'm pretty sure we overreacted to him having 1 catch for 4 yards in week 1. Marvin Harrison Jr. looked like he belonged. The route running was there. The hands were incredible. The spatial awareness was there. This offense looks incredible. The defense played incredible as well, though. Dennis Gardeck with 3 sacks. The secondary making huge plays. Budda Baker had a good game. The defense is still like a concern that I have about Arizona, but I don't know how you can look at this Cardinals team and not see them as one of the premier NFC teams right now. This team looks really, really good, and I'm all in on Arizona right now. I think they're going to be a really interesting team moving forward. They were in it with Buffalo down the stretch. This team could be 2-0. I love this Cardinals team right now. I got them at number 20. At number 19, we've got the team we just watched on Monday Night Football, and that is going to be the Atlanta Falcons. I don't know why every single Monday night game, now that I'm trying a new slide design, it always cuts off the last number. Falcons are 1-1, but this was a really promising game if you are a Falcons fan. I thought Zach Robinson did an excellent job play calling this game. The Eagles couldn't stop the wide zone run. They couldn't stop it. Bijan Robinson was incredible in this game, quite frankly. He just looked like he couldn't be tackled. Some of the jukes he made, I was like, oh my gosh. Like, he just looked filthy in the run game. But that's not what you're taking away from this game if you're a Falcons fan. Kirk Cousins looked good tonight. Kirk Cousins looked really good tonight, I would say. The decision-making was there. There was one errant throw in this game where you're like, oh no. And it was the one, I want to say it was in the first quarter. He threw an out route. Quinyon Mitchell was like right there, was ball hawking it, almost pulled off the interception, dropped it. The only other play where you're like, oh no, was Darnell Mooney just stopped running his route. It was a great throw from Kirk. It was going to be a big completion. He dropped it, but loved the way they got the weapons involved. I was told by Bears fans that Darnell Mooney was washed, and that's why his numbers took a dip. Sure doesn't look like it. Darnell Mooney was incredible tonight. We talked about Bijan. We talked about Kirk. The offensive line was phenomenal. They just kept him protected all night long against a good Eagles defensive front. Defensively, I still think the defensive line could improve. They really had no pass rush. You had 1 sack from Matthew Judon. That's it. But they were bailed out. They're 1-1. I'm not really sure where to feel about this team. It's a really solid league right now. But if they can continue to win, I mean, they got Kansas City next week. We'll see how that one goes. But I do like this Falcons team. I do think they've got pieces. I don't think they're the favorites in the division, but I do think they're doing some good stuff. If that is anything indicative on what is to come, I think Atlanta is going to be a pretty solid team this year. The best team that I still don't know if it's good or not, it's the Steelers. And this is the case with them every year. I still don't think Justin Fields is good. Steelers fans are now the ones that are trying to tell me Justin Fields is good. I've watched these Steelers games. He hasn't done anything that I have been like, oh, wow, Justin Fields just made a really good play. They haven't asked him to do anything at all. Literally do nothing. He's made a couple of plays, but like, I'm not moved at all by what I've seen from Justin Fields. It's the defense. The defense is the only reason they're winning football games. And even then, like, I don't think their defense was like out of this world good against the Broncos yesterday. I don't really know what to make of the Steelers. I got them at number 18. I know people are going to say that's too low, but like, I just can't see how they're any higher. They beat the Broncos and they beat the Falcons. The defense has looked good. The offense has looked okay. They've been able to run the ball all right, I guess, but that's about it. They're getting unbelievable. Like, the offensive line just can't stop getting flagged for penalties right now. That's something that's got to get cleaned up. I got some concerns about Pittsburgh. Don't really think they faced a good opponent yet. I got them at number 18 right now. I know I just said that the Steelers didn't face a good opponent, and I just hyped up the Falcons, but that was not a good opponent in week 1. I just want to get that out of the way really quick. But at number 17, we do have the Minnesota Vikings, and I'm in. I'm in on this Sam Darnold thing. I talked about him being that breakout star this year for the Vikings in my breakout stars video, and he was every bit as good as I thought he could be. What a game from Sam Darnold. Just looked confident and composed in the pocket, made some incredible reads. That 97-yard touchdown to Justin Jefferson might be play of the year. I don't really know if we're going to get another play better than that. Just an unbelievable throw, and Jefferson's ability after the catch to just make things happen is incredible. The offensive line is playing incredible. They had no weapons in this game. Jordan Addison was out. Hawkinson was out. Jefferson went out in the third quarter. Didn't really matter. They were still able to throw the ball effectively, and the defense is playing really, really good. That's all I'll say. I mean, Dallas Turner hasn't really had much of a role on this team because Andrew Van Ginkel has been that guy for them. Made 2 splash plays the last 2 games that have been difference makers for this Vikings defense. Harrison Smith came up big at times in this game for them. And yeah, I like the way this Vikings team is playing. They were a team that I didn't think would be a playoff team, mainly because I didn't know what to make of this Sam Darnold thing. And they definitely look like they could contend for one of those wild card spots right now. They are sitting alone at the top of the NFC North. I don't expect that to remain the case, but they've looked really good through 2 weeks. They had a really solid game against the Giants, had a really solid game against a very good 49ers team. I got them at number 17. I think they're a good football team. Would like to see a little bit more because the Sam Darnold thing is this big unproven piece still. But another win next week, and they could easily climb up into that top 15 range. This might be the biggest rise in the history of my power rankings. I don't think I've ever had a team go up this much ever. The Saints go up 11 spots. Yeah, 11 spots for the New Orleans Saints. I was wrong about the Saints team. I thought the Saints team had a very legitimate chance to contend for the number 1 overall pick. That's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And I'll go a step further. They're probably going to jump into the top 10 next week because I think they're going to beat the Eagles with how they're playing right now. What a performance against Dallas. Derek Carr all of a sudden looks like an incredible quarterback. I don't know where or when that happened. I've watched Derek Carr since he was drafted. I've never seen this from Derek Carr. Alvin Kamara looks like 2018 Alvin Kamara again, just randomly. The Honey Badger is making interceptions on Dak Prescott in the middle of the field. Clint Kubiak, we talked about Drew Petzing's offense. This play-action offense that they are running right now with New Orleans is incredible. And Rashid Shaheed is playing incredible as well. I didn't know what to make of this receiving room. Shaheed's playing incredible right now. I mean, there's just so much positive things to say. The offensive line, like Talise Fuaga, looks like a home run. He has been lights out through the first 2 games of his NFL career. You're getting good plays from Olave. The defense is making plays. Chase Young is looking good. And I'm very, very impressed with the way this offense has looked. That was my concern. I'm like, the defense is going to be scrappy. They're going to keep them in games. Is the offense going to be good enough to like win you games or like keep you competitive? The offense is the only reason they're winning these games right now. I mean, they're just outscoring everybody right now, and I'm very impressed. We'll see what ends up happening against the Eagles team, but like with the way their safeties look tonight, the way their linebackers are tackling, I think Kamara is an easy start for me next week in fantasy with the way that the Eagles have defended the run through 2 weeks. Yeah, I'm in on the Saints right now. I've got them at number 16. They jump up 11 spots and sit firmly in the middle of the league. Another massive riser this week for me are the Los Angeles Chargers. The Chargers are a team that is they're just one of these scrappy teams that's going to find ways to win games. I'm just shocked at the way that they've looked really good defensively. Khalil Mack, you got Joey Bosa making plays again. Derwin James looks like Derwin James. You're getting great play from Deion Henley, and the linebackers look good. The defense looks really good for the Chargers right now. And on top of that, it helps when J.K. Dobbins is running the way he's running. Quentin Johnston made some really big plays, 2 touchdowns. And like Johnston was my wide receiver 1, admittedly. Don't think he's going to be the best receiver from this class, in hindsight's 2020. But if you're getting solid play from Quentin Johnston, you feel pretty good about this team. And I think the offensive line looks really solid, like exceptionally solid. The 2 highest graded tackles for week 2, Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater. So the offensive line looks great. Obviously, there's a completely new culture that has come in with this Jim Harbaugh era, and you can feel it. This team feels different. They got an energy to them again. I still don't know what to make of them. They're another one of these teams. I'm like, okay, they beat Carolina. All right, an okay matchup. And you beat the Raiders. All right. You got a game against the Steelers. That's going to be my first true test of this team. If they're able to win that, I feel pretty good about this team being a potential wild card team. But for right now, I got them at 15. I've been very impressed with how they've looked. I do think that the offense looks a little bit more dynamic than it has in years prior because of the addition of the run game. And I like this Chargers team. I got them at number 15 right now. At number 14, we got the Cincinnati Bengals. I know they're 0-2. We got a couple of 0-2 teams left. Man, just a brutal loss for this team. I'm not going to blame the flag, even though I think, like, what's the defender supposed to do? He's got a right to the football. He can't, like, go underneath the receiver. He's making a play on the ball. He didn't push the whatever. We'll get into that another day. I thought they played a really good game. And similar to what I said with the Falcons, I feel pretty good if I'm a Bengals fan right now. I'm not writing this team off yet because I thought they looked really good for three and a half quarters, and they just collapsed late. Burrow was comfortable. He had that pocket presence again. He had that swagger that we've seen from him in years prior. And that is the most exciting thing you could take away for if you're a Bengals fan. Zach Moss looked good in the run game. The offensive line looked much better than it did last week. And I will go even a step further. I kind of think I would trade T. Higgins. I know that sounds crazy, but I liked the way Jermaine Burton played today. I liked the way Andre Yoshivas played. I liked the way Mike Gesicki played. They have weapons. What you really got to figure out, though, you got to get Jamar Chase the ball. And I do want to talk about Jamar Chase a little bit because he's the reason they lost this game. I mean, he wanted a hip drop tackle. He should have gotten it. Well, let's get that out of the way. My biggest complaint with the NFL this year, you enforced this new hip drop tackle rule where you can't tackle a player by the hip and pull him down. Okay, enforce the freaking rule. Why is it in place? Not a single one has been called. It was a dumb rule to begin with. But if you're going to have it, at least call it. And then you get Jamar Chase going absolutely insane at the ref. He was out of line. I will say Joe Burrow I respected him in that moment because he shoved Jamar Chase. That's one of his best friends. And he was in his face, really upset with him because that might have cost him the game. They got to kick a field goal. Just down the stretch, bad decision making for the Bengals lost in this game. But I thought the defense was really good. I thought Trey Hendrickson had a heck of a game. Kingsley Suamatea, who last week everyone was hyping up as like, oh my gosh, the Chiefs did it again. I didn't think he looked good in week 1, and he definitely didn't look good in week 2. Hendrickson was all over the field in that game. Cam Taylor-Britt with an incredible interception in this game. I thought we saw Lou Anarumo's defense back for the first time. I think we'll see that matchup again in the playoffs. I do still think the Bengals are a playoff team. Was impressed with what I saw. You lost to the Chiefs by a point. I'm not too worried about it, but you got to clean up some of those decision-making things down the stretch. The third straight season where the Bengals start 0-2. Oh boy. I mean, I don't even know where to begin with this Dolphins team. They very well could be like at 21 because I just don't think Tua's going to play for like 3 weeks. And if they're 1-4, I don't trust Tua to win 8 out of your last, what is that going to be, 13 games or something like that? So, yeah, I mean, I am pretty low. I was pretty low on the Dolphins coming into the year. And honestly was pretty impressed with what I saw. I thought Achane ran the ball well. I mean, the offensive line has held up decently. The defense looked okay week 1. Week 2, they just got embarrassed. Defense couldn't stop anybody. They just were getting cut through like butter in both the run and the pass. On top of that, probably the most concerning thing is Tua. I mean, he's one hit away from like having serious like life-changing brain damage. And if I'm a Dolphins fan, if I'm the Dolphins coaches, like you hear all these Dolphins PR people saying, oh, it's up to Tua. We'll let Tua decide. It's not our job to tell him what to do. If you put Tua out there again and he gets another concussion, that's on you. It's not on Tua at that point because you can tell him like, hey, we can't play you anymore. That's the job of the team to step in there, in my opinion, and give him the money. He's got guaranteed money. Pay him his money and just let him walk away because he's got nothing to prove to anybody. And I think long-term health is way more important than him winning you a few more football games. This Dolphins team I'm kind of out on right now. I still got him at 13 because that Tua piece is so uncertain. He could play next week for all I know. But right now, I got him dropping 3 spots, and it's probably going to look a little bit worse than this after next week. At number 12, we've got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, if I would have told you that Tampa would be the best team in Florida through the first 2 weeks, not sure many people would have believed me. Now, they had a pretty easy game against Washington that I think everyone picked them to win for the most part. And then week 2, go to Detroit in a revenge game and end up pulling off the win. Now, I do have concerns about the run game. I think Bucky Irving's looked fine. Rachaad White still just doesn't look playable, to be completely honest, as a runner. Great receiving back, however. What I will say, the thing that I don't think the Buccaneers expected to get this year was like Chris Godwin returning to his prime form. Chris Godwin looks incredible through the first 2 weeks. He's been lights out, just this difference maker of a weapon for them that I don't think they were expecting to have this year. The other piece that I don't think they were expecting was Zion McCollum to have the type of jump he had. I was high on him coming into the year. I was like, I think he's going to have they have to believe in him because they traded Carlton Davis and they need somebody to step up as that CB2. And Zion McCollum did that. Was targeted 5 times for 1 completion that went for 5 yards, had an interception in this game, and he was everywhere. 6 tackles. I want to say he had a tackle for loss. I mean, he was incredible for this team. There's a defense that's well coached by Todd Bowles. The offense looks very good. Baker still right up in that MVP conversation right now for me. And the Bucs are 2-0, pulled off one of the best wins of the week. I think they're a borderline top 10 team right now. I really do. I love what I'm seeing from them. And I got them at number 12. Another win next week, and we could be looking at this team as a top 10 team in the league yet again. At number 11, we got the Baltimore Ravens. I don't know how the Ravens end up losing half the games they end up losing because, I mean, they are 2 plays away from being 2-0. and they're 0-2 right now. You have a must-win game against Dallas. Now, I know saying a must-win in week 3 is outrageous, but it's a must-win game for them because if they lose that game, I don't really see you coming down from 0-3 getting back into the playoffs, let alone winning this division that's already a bloodbath. Lamar Jackson looks fine. I mean, I wasn't really impressed with how he finished the game in week 1. Didn't look great week 2 against Vegas. I really don't know what they're doing with Derrick Henry. Like, why is he there? I mean, he looks great. Give him the ball. They just don't want to feed him the football. But the defense has taken a massive step back with Mike McDonald and Anthony Weaver and some of these pieces leaving. Like, they've lost 3 very important defensive coordinators, and it shows for this team. The secondary looks way worse. They don't have the pass rush they had last year. And that was why they were one of the best teams. That's why they had the best record in the NFC, or the AFC, excuse me. It's because of their defense. They don't have that anymore. And that's a big concern. If you don't beat Dallas next week, which I don't think they will, I think it could get really ugly for the Ravens. And I got them at number 11. I know they're 0-2. They're really here because of the pedigree. I know a lot of people don't want to see an 0-2 team ahead of a 2-0 Bucs team. I get it, but they're still the Ravens. They're still one of the most talented rosters. I got them at number 11. I need to see something from them fast. I'm back in on Cleveland. I don't know why. I just am. Defense looked good against Jacksonville. Myles Garrett's playing great football yet again. I think the secondary did its job. I don't want to spend too much time on this team. I do have some concerns. Watson didn't look incredible. He didn't. On top of that, the run game was average. I don't love that. I don't love that they're not using Amari Cooper very much. And I definitely do like the way Jerry Jeudy's being used. I thought he had a good game. I don't want to spend too much time. They should have won this game by double digits. Kevin Stefanski's late game management remains to be one of the most puzzling things in the NFL. I never understand it. That being said, I got them as a top 10 team. Their defense is good. If you get serviceable play from your quarterback, it doesn't need to be Deshaun. If you get serviceable play from Jameis or Dorian Thompson-Robinson, that's fine. This team should easily be a playoff team because of that. And I got them at the number 10 spot. At number 9, we got the Dallas Cowboys. I don't know if the Cowboys are bad or if the Saints are just that good. That's kind of where this number 9 ranking comes in. Was a pretty bad Dak Prescott game, though. I will say that. Bad decisions, throwing the ball in double coverage, not really going to his first reads. Just bad decisions from Dak Prescott. The defense was not great either. I think Micah Parsons was okay. DeMarcus Lawrence was okay, but they weren't really pushing the pocket of New Orleans at all. They couldn't stop them down the field. The safeties and secondary looked lost at times in this game. I do have some concerns. Mike McCarthy's still a bad coach. That hasn't changed. Mike Zimmer, I don't know what to make of him as the defensive coordinator yet because they looked pretty incredible against Cleveland. They looked pretty terrible against New Orleans. So that Baltimore game's a must-win for both of these teams. But that being said, I do think Dallas is going to be fine. They're still a top 10 team. But that was a bit of a concerning showing because I don't think anyone should get beat by the Saints that bad. At least I didn't until this week. So we'll see what happens. But I got the Saints the Cowboys, at number 9. I feel like we hit it on the Colts segment earlier in this video, but I got the Packers at number 8. They go up a spot. I was high on Green Bay coming into the year. They were my pick to win the Super Bowl. Jordan Love goes down. Everyone's dropping them down into the 20s. I'm like, guys, it's fine. Like he might play next week. He was questionable to play in week 2. He might play next week, which would be incredible if we get to see Jordan Love play. But I mean, they looked really good in this game. The linebackers were okay. I mean, the secondary was flying around. Xavier McKinney has been a home run pick. I need to get my Xavier McKinney autograph up here somewhere. He looks like a home run pickup for this team. 2 interceptions through the first 2 weeks. He's been phenomenal. The run defense has been pretty good. They had pass rush. Van Ness had some plays in this game that were really impressive. And they've been able to run the ball effectively, whether that's on the outside with Jaden Reed, whether that's with Marshawn Lloyd or with Josh Jacobs. I think the run game has been dynamic. The offensive line has done a good job. Now you got this added rush element of Malik Willis, who I still don't think is very good, but like if you're able to run the ball, that's always a good thing. Green Bay looks pretty good. I'm not really moving them up or down. They are still a top 10 team for me. They jump a spot mostly because Dallas dropped the spot, but I do have the Packers at my number 8 ranking. At number 7, we got the New York Football Jets, and I really don't know what to make of this team still. I still have them in the top 10 because I think this is such a talented roster, and we've seen flashes of it. Aaron Rodgers looks good. I know some people are going to say, oh, he looks slow. I mean, he looks good. He looks like a quarterback that is 40 years old. But he still shows you some of these plays where you're like, oh my gosh, Prime Rodgers is still there. I thought he was good in the game against Tennessee. Had some good plays, made a really good pass to Breece Hall for a touchdown. You like that. I like the way they're running the football with Breece Hall and Braylon Allen, that 1-2 combo. They got to pay Hassan Reddick, though. They don't have a pass rush. And yet now I have Jermaine Johnson going on IR. He ruptured his Achilles, so prayers up to him. But, I mean, the secondary is doing its thing, but they're giving the quarterback all day to kind of pick them apart. DJ Reed was out for the game, so he's got to get healthy. But you got to pay Hassan Reddick or sign somebody because Will McDonald is not going to do it. So I've got the Jets at number 7. I still think it's a good football team. They should be 2-1 next week. They play the Patriots on Thursday night. That should be a win, but I got the Jets at number 7. At number 6, we got the 1-1 Eagles. I don't know how they lost this game. Really disappointing loss if you're an Eagles fan because you had this game pretty much on wrap the entire game. Like there was no way that Atlanta should have been able to come back and win the way they did. They couldn't generate any pressure at all. The pass rush was non-existent. Milton Williams had 1 sack in this game. That was it. The defense was a disaster. Secondary looked terrible. Linebackers didn't look like they did in Brazil. And the offense just felt stale, especially in that fourth quarter. Jalen Hurts' late game decision-making was not there. It was a rough fourth quarter for Jalen Hurts. You had the drop by Saquon Barkley, which, I mean, Saquon had a heck of a game. That is a must-have it. And there was just a lot of those sort of things for the Eagles. Now, Saquon looked great. Devonta Smith looked great. And Jalen Hurts can run again. We hadn't seen that in like 2 years now, it seems like. Hurts can run again. That's a positive. They're still one of the best teams in football. But the way they lost that game felt a little bit too much like last year. That does have me worried. They go 1-2 because, like I said, I like that Saints team. Things could get pretty ugly for the Eagles. I've got them at number 6. Entering the top 5, we got the Buffalo Bills, a team that I really didn't want to buy into the hype with, but like they talked about it on a Thursday night broadcast, and I can't stop thinking about it. This feels a little bit like when the Chiefs traded Tyreek Hill, and everyone's like, oh no, who is Patrick Mahomes going to throw to? And they signed like Juju Smith-Schuster, Marquez Valdez-Scantling. They're like, we got one of the best quarterbacks in the world. We're going to find a way to win. And that's exactly what Buffalo did. Traded Stephon Diggs to Houston. You got one of the best quarterbacks in the world. And I trust they're going to find ways to win football games. The defense looks great. Von Miller looks like Von Miller. That is massive for Buffalo because if you get a good Von Miller, the ceiling is the Super Bowl for this team. There is a chance that Buffalo is a Super Bowl team this year. This could be the season because I love what we're seeing from the weapons. Shakir looks good. James Cook out of the backfield looks dynamic. Josh Allen looks comfortable, and he's making incredible plays with the football with both his arms and his legs. On top of that, Kincaid looks great. Keon Coleman, unlimited touches, looks good. Like this offense looks balanced. It looks comfortable for Josh Allen. He doesn't have to force the ball to Stephon Diggs to keep him happy, which is it could be addition by subtraction. Who knows? The other thing that I really am impressed by is the defense. Like I said, they're generating pressure. Damar Hamlin looks good as that safety position, replacing Jordan Poyer, which you like to see that. And the linebackers, I think, are playing good despite having a million injuries. So I'm really impressed by what Buffalo has been able to do. And I've got them sitting pretty comfortably in the top 5 at the number 5 spot. At number 4, we got the Detroit Lions. Man, Aiden Hutchinson had 5 sacks, and it wasn't enough to win this game. This is an offense that, really kind of sucked yesterday. Jamison Williams had a big splash play. You had some good stuff to Amon-Ra across the middle, but, Sam Laporta's been a non-factor. Jahmyr Gibbs has been a non-factor. David Montgomery's been okay for this team. Jared Goff threw the ball 55 times against that Buccaneers defense. They owned time of possession. And they ran 81 offensive plays. It just wasn't enough for this team to pull off the win. I do have some concerns about this team. The offense has not looked very good for 2 weeks. They didn't look great against LA. They didn't look great tonight. Secondary looks okay. Not too moved by it. I'm not too moved by much of the defense other than Aiden Hutchinson. So Aiden Hutchinson right now is the pick to win Defensive Player of the Year. I mean, he's on pace for 52 sacks. Not a made-up stat. So you feel pretty good about that. But, yeah, there are some concerns to be had in Detroit. They should have won that game, but they're still such a talented roster. They could turn this around next week, blow out Arizona, and we're talking about them as the best team in football again. So I got them sitting at number 4. At number 3, we got the San Francisco 49ers. Not much to say. Injuries kind of decimating this roster now as well. And where you look at it, and you got you got Brock Purdy. You got no Christian McCaffrey, and now no Deebo Samuel. And, a weird game. Jordan Mason, I thought, played fine. I thought this was a bad Brock Purdy game, really. Fumbled the ball, threw an interception in the red zone, just some bad decision-making. The defense was not very good, couldn't generate a ton of pressure. Fred Warner looked great, but other than that, not too moved by it, but they're still the Niners, and they're still going to be one of these teams that's always good. Not putting too much stock into that loss. You played a really good offense there in Minnesota with a great defense. I got the Niners sitting at my number 3 spot. I don't really have too much to add with this team. At number 2, we got the Houston Texans. I mean, I don't think they played very good either of the last 2 weeks. And it's the opposite because week 1, the offense looked fantastic. Week 2, the defense looked fantastic. Kamari Lassiter with an incredible interception. Will Anderson, Danielle Hunter generating pressure. But the offense felt very stagnant. After Joe Mixon went out, they really didn't have much of a play-action attack. You need to see a little bit more of that improve. Who knows that if Joe Mixon's going to be able to go next week, that's something to keep your eye on. But Nico Collins looks absolutely incredible. He might win Offensive Player of the Year. He looks so good right now for Houston. The defense played incredible, as I said. I mean, there's just such a balanced roster. I got them at number 2. I mean, they're playing some incredible football. And you see the logo that's on my shirt. It pains me to do it, but Houston's playing out of their minds right now. I got them at number 2. And until they lose, it's not changing. The Chiefs are number 1. I shouldn't have to explain myself. I mean, they find ways to win games. Patrick Mahomes' voodoo magic. I mean, that's really all I got to say. It's a 4th and 16. You're yeah, they'll probably find a way to convert it. You have no doubt in your mind. What we talked about, I didn't agree with the call necessarily. I don't want to talk about the officiating, but this was not a good game from the Chiefs. Let's get that out of the way. Defense was average. Chris Jones was good. McDuffie was good on Chase. Defense was average as a whole. Offense was not good. Patrick Mahomes, bad decision-making in this game. Travis Kelce was nowhere to be found. And they really only had one big play to Rashee Rice. And now they're missing Isaiah Pacheco. you're relying on an undrafted Carson Steele. So that's something that could hurt you a little bit because Pacheco was a big part of their success last year. It was big in week 1. And they're 2 plays away, again, for being 0-2. So I got them at number 1 kind of by default because until they lose, I can't put anyone else ahead of them. But I think there are some legitimate concerns in Kansas City. But that's going to do it for me in this video, guys. Be sure to hit that like button, subscribe if you are new. I put a ton of time into these videos. I hope you guys enjoy them as much as I do. Stay tuned. We've got my weekly mock draft coming on Wednesday, followed by 2 prospect spotlights. Subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Adios.